How's it going, guys? Yeah, it's official. Hughie Fury is going to be traveling over to New Zealand to face WBO Heavyweight Champion Joseph Parker. First thing I want to say about this fight is this has to be, and I know the fight hasn't happened yet, so it might sound a little bit premature for me to say this, but this has to be one of the most boring and uninteresting matchups in the heavyweight in recent heavyweight history. This is going to be a terrible fight. Stylistically, the two styles of these fighters, just in my opinion, at least looking at the fight stylistically, it doesn't look like they match up well. Put it that way. I mean, both guys are guys who are tall and rangy and who tend to do things on the back foot. And that can be exciting depending on who they've got in front of them. But I see this fight being more lackluster than the Fury Klitschko fight was, to be honest. I think it's going to be a fight where neither guy wants to lead, neither guy really wants to engage in the fight, and it's just going to be a boring 12 round, fencing match, basically, a tickling contest. That's what it's going to be. I mean, Hughie Fury. I'll be honest with you guys, I really don't like Hughie Fury. It's nothing to do with him as a person. I just can't stand his style. He is one of the most boring fighters in the sport. He's a talented boxer. He was a very good amateur. He's tall. He's about 6'7", very long arms. He's obviously had a lot of training and sparring with Tyson Fury, and he fights a similar style to his cousin, and he's got some similar attributes to what his cousin has. In addition to being a much more dedicated athlete to his cousin, Hughie Fury is always in shape, but he's just god awful to watch, man. And I mean, he's boring. He really is, and Joseph Parker in his last couple of fights hasn't really looked that aesthetically pleasing either. Although I don't think he's quite as lackluster to watch as Huey is, but I just think that the two styles together, it's going to be a very boring fight in my opinion. But enough about my personal views on who's boring and who's not. Let's just talk about the fight in general. How do I see this one going? Like I said, I see it going the distance. Hughie Fury, I know for a fact from interviews that I've read and stuff like that Hughie Fury, he's looking for a decision in this fight. Peter Fury and Tyson Fury have talked about it several times. They've talked about, yeah, Hughie is going to take this one 12 rounds. He's looking for a decision. He's going to try and outwit Joseph Parker on the outside. And yeah, because Hughie Fury, he's not a puncher. He just doesn't have elite level heavyweight power. And I know that Tyson Fury isn't much of a puncher either on the scale of things when you compare him to people like Klitschko, but Hughie has even less power. He really does. His power is he hits like a light heavyweight, put it that way. So he understands that. So he uses what advantages he has to box on the outside, and he's going to look to outbox Joseph Parker. And you know what, guys? I think that this is a very difficult fight for Joseph Parker. I really do, because this is the first time that Joseph Parker is going to fight anybody who is quite as slick on the outside as Hughie Fury. Now, he did fight people like Dimitrenko, who are tall fighters, but Dimitrenko is very fragile at this stage. He's past his prime, and he really he didn't really come to fight, put it that way. He came for a payday, and he didn't look like he was that motivated in there. Whereas Hughie Fury is an undefeated young fighter, young boxer who's going to be looking to win his first world title. So, clearly he's going to be in there with a lot more ambition and a lot more dedication, and he's going to be there looking to run away and steal a victory on the outside. That's what I see happening, or that's what I see him trying to do. Not saying it's going to work, but I've seen a few people on social media and whatnot that are concerned about the fact that the fight's taking place in New Zealand. Personally, that does not concern me in the slightest. I mean, when was the last time there was a robbery in New Zealand? I cannot for the life of me understand why people still think that Andy Ruiz won that fight against Joseph Parker. He didn't, okay? He didn't even come close to winning that fight, okay? Watch the fight again, and yeah, Joseph Parker just he kind of just outwitted him on the outside. And Andy Ruiz, there was no pressure from Andy Ruiz. There was no ambition from him either. He was just looking to, he just did just enough to lose. And Joseph Parker was pulling away and landing punches on the outside. He marked up his face. And Joseph Parker won that fight clearly. And the fact that it was a majority decision, that worries me in the sense that even if Joseph Parker wins this fight, are they going to give it to him in his home country? Because one judge didn't give it to him against Andy Ruiz, and that surprises me. Also, Hughie Fury, he's promoted by Mick Hennessy, and he's being financially backed by Frank Warren and whatnot. And Frank Warren has a lot of pull with the WBO and officials and stuff. So I don't see there being any corruption here in favor of Joseph Parker. Okay, that's not going to happen. It's happening in New Zealand because Parker's team put up a lot of money to win the purse bid. But I don't think that Joseph Parker's promotional, his promoters, I don't really think that they have much pull. I don't really think they're really a powerhouse. So I don't see there being. If Hughie Fury wins this fight, I expect him to get the decision. I don't think they'll rob him. Just like I knew for a fact that they weren't going to rob Tyson when he fought Vladimir. A lot of people were saying, "Oh, you can't get a decision in Germany." That's bullshit. Okay, plenty of fighters have gotten fair decisions in Germany. Okay, I can give you tons of examples of fair decisions over there. So, yeah, all that talk about he had to knock him out to get a draw, it was complete crap. And yeah, I feel the same way about this one. I mean, I can't remember off the top of my head there being any, scandalous decisions in New Zealand. Maybe there was, but I don't know. And yeah, with all the people that are backing Hughie for this fight, like I said, Frank Warren, Mick Hennessy, probably the WBO, if recent history tells us anything, a lot of people are going to be backing him. So, yeah, I think that Hughie is going to be well looked after, even in New Zealand. And if the fight is close, and even if he wins it, I think he'll get the decision. I do. Um, but honestly, to me, this fight depends on it depends on several different things. First of all, there was rumours of Hughie Fury having health issues. Obviously, he had tons of acne all over his body, and some people believe it's because of the nandrolone issue, because him and Tyson tested positive for nandrolone. I really don't know what's going on there. There's conflicting reports. Whether or not he did actually take nandrolone, I don't know. Okay, again, it's up to the experts. I really don't give a shit if he did or not. I don't care about PEDs. Take whatever you want. I really don't care. But yeah, he's having problems with acne, and I think that it's affected his career somehow. I really don't know. It's just reports that I've read. But if he's healthy, he's in with a shot at this fight. He really is. Although I do think that Joseph Parker is a little bit more compact. Like I said, he hits harder. He's more experienced than Hughie as a professional. Joseph Parker has certainly fought the far superior competition. Like I said, he's fought Dimitrenko. He's fought Andy Ruiz. He's also fought some veteran journeyman people like Sherman the Tank Williams and Franz Botha. I know those guys are washed up, but still, for a guy on his way up, they're good. Good learning curves basically. They're tough and durable. So fighting those guys, it's good experience. And he's also fought Carlos Takam, who's probably the best opponent he's fought so far. Unless you consider Andy Ruiz the best. But personally, I think Andy Ruiz was a little bit overrated in my opinion. I don't really rate Andy Ruiz that highly. So I mean, when Andy Ruiz was actually set to fight Hughie Fury, and I've still got my video up, I was picking Hughie Fury to win that fight on points, and I was picking him to dominate that fight. So I certainly think that Hughie Fury is certainly a far more difficult guy to fight than Andy Ruiz. And it's mostly due to his ability to box on the outside, because Andy Ruiz is just too short and fat to box on the outside. So a tall 6'7" slim guy with a good jab and movement who can switch his stance and stuff, it's going to be difficult for Parker, because Parker is, like I said, he's not faced anybody that's this tall and this slick before. So it's going to be an uphill battle for Parker, I think. And I think Parker will struggle. I really do think he'll struggle. It'll be a difficult fight for him. Now, I'm not saying he can't win, but what Parker needs to do is he has to be aggressive here, and he has to work the body. You see, the thing that Vladimir Klitschko failed to do against Tyson Fury, in my opinion, was he failed to, assert himself in the fight. As if you know what I'm saying, he failed to, when he realized that he couldn't outbox Fury on the outside. He had to use feints. He had to throw punches to the body. He had to, kind of set the pace, because he was the better athlete. So he had to set the pace and really use his experience and his athleticism to get himself back in the fight. And he didn't do it. He was content to just stay on the outside and allow himself to get outboxed. It was as if he was scared to engage in the fight. So I think in the rematch he definitely would have been more aggressive, and he certainly would have been in for a shot at knocking Fury out. Although I was picking Fury to win the rematch, Klitschko certainly would have had a chance because he was doing all the right things in training. So, but in regards to Hughie, yeah, I think that Joseph Parker, he has to learn from that. He has to look at that Fury Klitschko fight, because I know that Hughie and Tyson are not the same fighter, but they've got some of the same mindset in the ring. You know, they're both guys who hang on the outside and look to score points from distance. So I think that Joseph Parker needs to look at that Klitschko fight, and he has to learn from it. Put it that way. You know, he needs to look at what Klitschko did wrong, and he has to be aggressive. I'm not saying, you know, just go out there and be wild. You know, he obviously needs to be tactful about it. But because he's the shorter man, because he's got a guy in front of him who's looking to go to the scorecards, and because you know he's going to be the defending champion, it's his first title defense. He needs to let Hughie Fury know. He needs to let the judges know that he is the champion. Okay, he doesn't necessarily have to. He doesn't necessarily have to knock Hughie out. But what he needs to do is he needs to make his power tell. He needs to be assertive. He needs to get. He needs to be on the front foot anyway, and he needs to apply steady but consistent pressure, and he needs to keep a tight guard, and but move his head at the same time. You know, he can't just put his hands up and look to block punches. He needs to move his head. Otherwise, the slicker and faster, younger opponent in Hughie Fury will just outbox him from the outside. So I think that Parker needs to mix it up. You know, I'm not saying that he can't outbox Fury on the outside, but he has to do it in a way that he's assertive, if you know what I mean. You know, it's kind of hard to explain. He needs to be outside, but then he needs to feint, he needs to come forward at times, and he needs to work the body. Okay, the body is key. And Parker, when he wants to, he can be a very effective body puncher. He actually hurt Dimitrenko to the body, who was a taller guy. So there's encouraging signs there. So um, because if he attacks the body, then that takes away Hughie Fury's best weapon in this fight, which is his legs, his movement. And you know, if Hughie Fury can't move around and stay on the outside and run around, then it's going to be more difficult for him to establish his jab from range. So that has to be Joseph Parker's game here. He has to be working the body, and he just has to assert his dominance as the champion, and then he should be able to get the victory. In Hughie Fury's case, we all know what he has to do: just stay away, box behind a jab, and look to steal a decision. Okay, that's what he does in every single fight. So, yeah, I don't know, I don't know who I'm picking here. If I had a gun to my head, I'll go with Hughie Fury at this stage. My mind might change. It's just I don't know. I can envision him outboxing Parker. I really can envision it happening. But I may make a week of the fight video, or I may update this or something. I don't know, because I'll have to see how the guys go in training. Basically, I have to see how they look in training. So let me know what you guys think, and thanks for watching.